Greetings, welcome, and thank you for joining us for week 9. Wow. Week 9 of 10 weeks in Jamaica, theater conversations from Jamaica to the world. I'm Magdalene F., co-founder and co-artistic director of Akiba Abaka Arts. We are an international theater production company that creates plays, concerts, talks, and processes for making plays, concerts, and talks for the global stage. 10 Weeks in Jamaica, Theater Conversations from Jamaica to the World, is a talk series featuring Jamaica's leading theater pioneers and practitioners. Each week, these amazing artists share the behind the scenes stories of Jamaica's theater community and offer their visions for the future. We are very grateful to work in collaboration with Miss Nadine Rollins, fire starter, founder of Raw Management Agency and co-curator of this series. Raw Management Agency is an esteemed talent agency representing artists and groups across all genres in film, television, theater, voiceovers, branding, and endorsements. This series is made possible by our publisher, HowlRound.com, a free and open platform for theater makers worldwide, and our sponsor, the Martin E. Siegel Theater Center at the City University of New York in Manhattan. Now, whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been watching us weekly since we started this series on November 1st, we thank you very much for being in our audience today and hope that you will return next week for our final episode. Our final episode on January 3rd. Our trip is coming to an end, folks. Yes, it is. We'd like to invite you right now, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. And while you're there, becoming a part of our growing family, click that bell. Go ahead. So you can be notified of our last episode coming next week and all our upcoming engagements. And while you're at it, you may as well just go ahead and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are Akiba Abaka Arts on all platforms. Now, at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce my partner, the hostess with the mostest, Miss Akiba Abaka. Let me tell you about this woman. She's been in the business for over 20 years. Looks 20, but has been in the business for over 20 years. So you figure that one out, okay? She is going to be your host and your moderator for this week's conversation. Please welcome Miss Akiba.
Thank you, Miss Magali.
Hey, Queen.
You know, I'm Jamaican born, and I've been here for a little while, but I didn't stop eating my yellow yam. So it's all about you got to eat your yellow yam. You got to eat your green banana.
Is that the trick?
Yes. You don't need any Botox, just good Jamaican food.
Nice, nice. Listen, I got my notebook this week, okay? Notebook and pen, so I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Pencil, of course. This is going to be a great conversation. As you know, each week we talk with the speakers a few days in advance of the conversation briefing. And I'm just I wasn't this smart when, I was their age. They're just really brilliant, and they really have life in their hands in the best way. You're going to see that in this conversation right now. Just some very brave souls and really, really smart. So it's going to be great.
Have fun.
Awesome. Since November 1st, we have been broadcasting conversations with Jamaican theater professionals. During week 1's conversation, we spoke with 2 pillars of the Jamaican stage, Oliver Samuels and Brian Heap. Week 2, we looked at the legacy of Miss Louise Bennett Coverley and the Little Theater Movement pantomime, who, by the way, just opened the pantomime yesterday in the tradition, a 78-year tradition of opening on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. We've continued throughout the subsequent weeks looking at the business of the Jamaican stage, looking at the influence of dance hall culture on the Jamaican stage, and perspectives from some of Jamaica's leading playwrights. And last week we had a very amazing and seminal conversation about queer narratives from the Jamaican stage. Today's conversation is an amalgamation of the past 8 weeks as we speak to the next generation of leaders of the Jamaican theater. The work of our speakers calls to mind one of my favorite speakers, orators, leaders, Douglas O'Rain, former head of the Jamaican conglomerate Grace Kennedy Limited, and also a Wilmerian, graduate of the Wilmer's Boys School, similar to one of our speakers today, Fabian Barracks. In his book, The Business of Nation Building, Douglas O'Rain states that leadership is about giving back to one's society. He goes on to say that as a leader, I am here to create a pathway, a ladder for others to climb to success in the same way that others did for me. This is exactly what Evone Walters, Fabian Barracks, and Rayon McLean have been doing throughout their careers. And as Jamaicans say, them age no fall off of the calendar yet, meaning their ages, the number of their age is still on the calendar. They have been creating pathways in the Du Boisian philosophy of each one, teach one. Fabian Barracks is the founder and CEO of Barracks Entertainment, a theater company that empowers youth through the arts. Among his award-winning commercial productions are Wasweet Nanigot, Black Sheep, and Ananda Alert. Fabian is extremely passionate about youth development and focuses on young people and focuses on producing plays that explore critical themes affecting young people. He established the Barracks Theater, which serves as a youth hub for theater arts. He is the recipient of the Actor Boy Award for Best Comedy for Black Sheep and the Youth Awards for Favorite Local Theater Play for What Sweet Nanny Goat. Fabian is an alum of the Wilmer's Boys School as well as the University of the West Indies. Welcome, Fabian.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me on this platform. Appreciate it.
We're so happy to have you, Fabian. Evone Walters is a creative social entrepreneur, theater director, and producer. A graduate of the Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts, School of Drama in Kingston, Jamaica, Evone has over 10 years experience in the industry and has worn hats such as stage manager, television show production manager, radio producer, and project coordinator. She is the founder and managing director of Art Tribute Performing Arts, a company focused on using the arts as a medium of learning. Evone is also proficient in using the arts as a vehicle for social change, focusing on maladaptive behavior in youth. Her passions also include the building of the creative industry in Jamaica and the education of creative entrepreneurs. And let me tell you, Evone is that whirlwind that Garvey talked about. Welcome, Evone.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Akiba. Thank you so much for having me today.
Great to have you. Rayon McLean is a director of theater, film, and television. He is a co-founder and artistic director of Quilt, Performing Arts Company, the Caribbean's leading devised theater company whose mission is to transform theater by using devised theater as a tool of expression. He has worked with the Jamaica Youth Theater, the Philip Sherlock Center for the Creative Art, and is a graduate of the University of the West Indies. Among his many awards and recognitions, Rayon is the recipient of the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence and the Governor General's Achievement Award for his work in culture and community outreach. He holds a master's degree in applied theater from Goldsmith University in London. Welcome, Rayon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You all look so amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Now, tell me this. When and where do you enter the theater? Tell me a little bit about your background. We'll start with Evan.
All right. So I started at 16 when I went to Edna College. Lies. I started in high school, drama club. But then I went to Edna College at 16. And that's where everything really kicked in for me. From there, I just started working in the industry, doing stage management. A lot what you said before. And now I own my business. So, yeah.
And you've been doing a lot of work with you've become a master pitcher. You're winning every pitch competition down there in Jamaica, going
Wow.
up non-arts businesses and just pitching and winning all that. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm very grateful. So 2020 came and threw us off. Of course, we're not having any theater. And I was like, what am I going to do? And a friend, I had my play I needed to get off the ground. And my friend said, why not enter a pitch competition? And I go, I'm like, please, nobody going to think my business is of anything for me to even win, much less come third. And she said, let's do it together. And I said, all right. Because she's a master pitcher and she taught me how to do it. Tishana Mullings, let me just big her up. And we went and we won. And I was like, okay, then into the second one, then a third and a fourth. And I'm like, okay, so what Archibute is doing is real serious business because investors are the ones judging and they're interested.
And I look forward to hearing more of that real serious business that you're bringing into the art space. Speaking of business, Fabian Barracks, tell us a little bit about when and where you entered the theater.
Well, for me, I was always a lover of theater. I remember in high school at Wolmer's, I started in first form. I was never the athletic type. So it for me was, I gravitated toward more the arts. And we entered JCDC Drama Festival in first form. And ever since then, it was just an amazing journey. After that, we kept on entering. And for me, I was so involved with all the processes in theater, the creation of props, the lights, engineering, all aspects of it really, really grabbed me. And then when I went on to go to the University of the West Indies, I studied entertainment and cultural enterprise management. Michael Holgate was one of my lecturers, and I can tell you that he impacted me so much, the work I was doing. Also, I got more involved through quilts. Quilt, again, that Ryan is involved in, as well as the Commuters Drama Society and University Drama Society. So I got involved in theater more at UWI. And then eventually I found that there was a space that I felt I could impact. And that's how Barks Entertainment started shortly during my university journey.
Excellent. You bring up Michael Holgate. He will be with us next week talking about Afrofuturism. Thank you. Rayon McLean, when and where do you enter the theater?
Through the back door. Literally, but I think I'm a born storyteller, and I've always been telling stories, even like from primary school, high school. It got me in a lot of trouble because I'm always, talking out of term. But I was able to find the right platform through the JCDC, the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission. They have an annual drama festival. And then I later joined the Jamaica Youth Theatre, which traditionally, to get into the Jamaica Youth Theatre, you'll have to enter another festival, which is the Secondary Schools Drama Festival, to get in. And you have to be Best Actor or Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, or Best Supporting Actress. I didn't get any of those awards. I didn't enter that festival. I found Aston Cook, who at the time was the head of the Jamaica Youth Theatre. And he kind of let me in through the back door, much to, I guess, the anger of a lot of the members at the time. So I literally came through the theater, through the back door or a side door. So I've spent the last couple of years of my life, I wouldn't creating doors for other people, or in fact, no doors. There are no walls, there's no nothing. There's, just for young people, just a space for other young people.
You know, you mentioned Aston Cook, the great Aston Cook, who many people might have seen him recently in the movie Sprinter. He was the teacher, the principal in that movie. But more than an actor, he was a playwright, a director, and one who was very special. And he was one of the leaders of the Jamaica Youth Theater as well. And that brings to mind. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had Marlon Sims on the program. And Marlon Sims, as you know, is the artistic director of the National Dance Theater Company of Jamaica. And he, in talking about Rex Nettleford, he called Rex Nettleford his art cester. Instead of saying ancestor, Rex Nettleford is his art cester. So if we were to position the three of you, whose are you? Who are some of your art cesters? Or even if it's not a person, what spaces would you say that you belong to, or philosophies that you belong to in the Jamaican and Caribbean space? We can start with Fabian.
All right. So for me, I don't have a person who per se I would say is my art sister, but I get my inspiration or stimulus from various spaces, various backgrounds. Dancehall music is the most prominent or prevalent one in every single play. That's what sometimes I'm even inspired by a song to start writing. Sometimes I'm inspired by a situation. So even my childhood, things that I reflect on, it may not even be someone who was into the theater space, but my family, a member of my family, who I can draw from and say, this has inspired me to really continue. So various things that come together that really push me or stimulate me to do what I'm doing, but not necessarily. But if I'm supposed to really recognize or acknowledge people, they could probably living people like Michael Holgate, church spaces. I'm extremely religious. All my plays have some aspect of especially the comedic aspects, the religion and Christianity. So it's so many different things that gets me going. It just lights up my fire,
Nice. Evanay, who are some of your art sisters? You're muted, hon. You're gonna have to unmute, sweetie.
When did I become mute? I'm sorry about that.
I'm gonna tell you, you're muted. I need Spice or Vibes Cartel or somebody to put that into a song, because you're muted is the ultimate saying of 2020. You're muted. Unmute. Oh my, Spice, you hear me?
Oh,
I need a song. You're muted.
All right, so for my art sisters, I'm going to look at living persons like Fabian was speaking about. Definitely Eugene Williams, when he come on to being a director for me. Eugene has poured in me from I was at Edna at 16 to this day. If I'm doing a play, I'm going to say, Eugene, I want to run my concept by you. And that's just how it is. And also Trevor
Eugene Williams, is he still at Edna Manley School of the Arts? Is he still the head of the drama program there?
So he's not the head anymore. He has retired, but he still teaches directing. So that's very good. Yes. And of course, Trevor Nearin from Center Stage. I've been blessed to be around Trevor as a student and even in the industry. And Trevor Nearin is a beats man. And I get that as a director from Trevor. If you aren't hitting those beats, I feel stressed out. So that's two. Carlin Allen for me is a mentor that to this day, I don't do any business without Carlin knowing. She taught me at Edna Manley. She has been such a supportive person of every dream I've ever had. And I want to shout out quickly to two persons as well who helped me with networking. I know Carl was on your program the other day, Carl Williams. And I really want to say, Carl Williams, when he was at Edna Manley, he would take us everywhere he's going, bring us along. We're doing backstage work, we're doing SM work, we're doing extra work, whatever it is. And Pierre Lemire, definitely. And lastly, Bobby Clark, rest his soul, voice and speech, phenomenal teacher in Jamaica. And definitely those persons for me poured so much in me as an individual where I'm here today.
Nice. Thank you, Evanay. Evanay, you got the chat going here. We have two members of the chat. Chris Ali, who has not missed not one episode since day one. She said that she saw your pitch for The Tempest. and at the Pitch Forward competition. And she says that it was a really great initiative that you have going there with theater. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you use theater in the classroom, Evane. You also have Marcus Waldron, who says, Evane goes hard. I know her work here in Trinidad. Okay, girl, in Trinidad. So you guys are really lighting up the chat. We're going to get to the chat. Watch them. We're going to get to you guys in the chat in a minute. We'll soon come. All right, Rayon, tell me, who are some of your ancestors?
All right, so I'll answer that question in two parts. So like on, I guess, the surface level, I have some very intimate, I guess, influences from people like Trevor Nairn, who is arguably my favorite theater director. I met Trevor through Michael Holgate, who at the time Trevor was mentoring Michael, and I kind of just hijacked Trevor. Of course, through the Jamaica Youth Theatre, there is the costume lady, Queen, Quindell Ferguson, Aston Cook, the late Aston Cook. Ebony, you spoke about Carlin Allen. That was just a good trio, you know, Quindell being so technical, Aston being just as a mastermind in terms of writing, and then Carlin being like the academic. And I've kind of just taken pieces of them, kind of put it in a little bottle and travel with it every day. But if I'm to go deeper, I think my theater style today and the way I operate as a director comes directly from the teacher in school who is not necessarily even a trained drama teacher, but a teacher who's a director and a writer, and giving everyday students opportunities to be on stage. So those teachers are probably the persons who planted that seed in me, you know, to want to create. So I think that's where my direct theater lineage or circle is linked to. The teacher who is also a director, also a playwright, because in Jamaican theater, because of, I guess, our socio-economic landscape, oftentimes it doesn't afford you to be one thing solely. It's almost like this forced double consciousness, where just as you are in school, the teacher is teacher of math, but also drama teacher between the hours of 3 to 6. And then sometimes your parents or your banker. That kind of relationship is the same relationship we had with Aston Cook, Carlin Allen, Quindell Ferguson. So you would go to Jamaica Youth Theatre and they'd probably give you bus fare after rehearsal. They'd ask you about your schoolwork. But they, in truth, are your theater director. So the role is always so multifaceted. And I think a lot of that is birthed in the schools because of how our teachers operate.
You know, you talk, to hear you all speak, I hear the village, I hear the ground. I hear the ground on which you stand. One of my ancestors is August Wilson. And
oh, yes,
his very, very famous speech, The Ground on Which I Stand, you know, talks about the need for theaters, for more Black-led and Black theaters in the US and really in the whole world. And so I really appreciate you all laying out the ground on which you stand, because the ground on which you stand gives you the gall to move forward and make you feel confident and make you feel a part of something and a part of a continuation of something. Speaking of which, we have Sophia Clark in the chat who says, God bless you all of my theater arts peeps. Special thanks to Evane and Fabian, who have blessed Meadowbrook High School so much. Keep up the excellent work. So you are even hearing the people in your village, in your the ground, respond to you right now. You know, speaking of the ground on which I stand, you know, Mr. Wilson wrote plays. He said, I wrote plays for an audience of one. which was myself. And when he talked about himself, he really was talking to the questions that he had for life. Many people live a life where they respond to the questions that life asks them. But Mr. Wilson, in his art, used his art to ask life questions. What are some of the questions that you're asking life through, or questions from your life that you're responding to through your art? We'll start with Rayon.
I'm always asking myself questions, you know, when I create my work. I think if I were to narrow it down to possibly 3 to 4 are the most important questions I ask when I'm doing my work. One, who am I? And by extension, who are we? The community. A lot of my work has to do with that inquiry into self, and questions surrounding identity, whether it's racial and national, gender-based, sexual. I'm always on that quest to ask questions about self and by extension, the wider community. I'm also always asking questions about place, and space. You know, what's my contribution in this space? You know, how do I exist in this space? How do I want to be perceived in this space? Or what does my voice sound like in this space? And place, you know, just how I occupy place, whether it's the physical theater or the idea of theater. There's a philosopher called, I think, Henri Lefebvre, I'm probably not pronouncing the word right, where he says the church, the capital C church, which is the philosophy and the ideology of church, is nothing without the small church, which is the building. You know, like, we need spaces to promote ideas about self. So I'm always questioning those two things, you know, like place and space, you know, or, you know, how do we exist? You know, what are we saying about ourselves? But also, how do we construct more spaces, whether it's not just theater, but just safe spaces for artists and young people?
Fabian, speaking of space, you put your money where your mouth is. And you actually stepped into that space. At one point, you ran a theater, your own space, which is quite remarkable for a young entrepreneur to actually say, I'm going to own my own space where I create theater and make it at my, with my own autonomy. What are some of the questions you were asking, and what led you to secure your own space? And I know that COVID has impacted that. You could talk a little bit about that if you'd like.
Well, I can tell you, 10 years ago when I started Barks Entertainment, I used to rent a space for, say, 2 to 3 months to do plays. And, you know, sometimes when I looked at it, pen to paper, looked at all the finances, I said, you know, this really doesn't make any sense. I spent 700,000 to 1 million Jamaican dollars renting a space for 2 months. This could probably lease a space for, say, six months. So when I really put things down, I say, you know, this is my long-term goal. And that was from year one. I can tell you that it was in the making. So for me, I always ask the question, how can I respond to youth and youth issues? What are they going through, and what is it that I can do? I've from ever since I started my first play, Family Remedy, it was in response to an issue. It was in response to something I saw in the media. It was a response to what the youths were crying out for. So in every single play I write, it's always, what is happening to our youth? How can I help? What solutions can I provide? And then even with creating Barks Entertainment last year before COVID, He was also responding to creating a youth hub somewhere where young people can come constantly to see productions, to be impacted by productions, to, like Evane does, to have academic performances that can impact their work with the CXC examinations that they'll have to do. So I wanted to respond to the needs of youth, and also I felt it was my duty to also inspire young people who were not exposed to theater at all. So young people who it was their first time seeing a play, I wanted them to see quality. I didn't want them to go out and see, something on YouTube or, through another means that's not necessarily mainstream theater, something that they can take influence from. And not only that, I wanted theater that really had a message. I didn't want it just for laughs. I wanted it something that they could take and inspire their lives and whatever they're going through with their parents, personal issues. I mean, growing up for me was hard. I was so troubled with a lot of youth issues. Suicide, I was extremely suicidal. I remember growing up, I had a lot of issues, teen issues, some more than others. I guess I was one of the unlucky ones with more.
Exposure to trauma.
Yes, severe trauma. And I do think the plays that I do, sometimes they're a bit heavy. And I think that's one of the major criticisms that I get, is because the plays are a bit heavy, but it is true to reality, whereas young people are going through these issues. And it's just my way of showing them that this is you're not alone. You're not alone, and it's right before you, so you can see the severe implications that it has. And not only that, just to offer solutions to the problems, whether it means to send them to for counseling, whether it means to intervene with them in the families, So these things is what theater that can uproot a situation. The last play, for example, Ananda Alert, that dealt with a serious issue, abduction, and the young people seeing what it is that they're doing to perhaps, cause this on themselves. And it's the misuse of social media. For me, a lot of them are putting things out there that are really raising an alert to people, to child predators. And for me, I wanted to bring it to a space. We see it in movies all the while, but why not bring it to the Jamaican reality on stage? And that's really what I wanted to do through Barracks Entertainment and the theater that I created.
Amazing. Profound. Evane, what are some of the questions that you're asking in the theater space?
One of the questions I ask is, how can I use drama to teach? And bring it in a classroom setting, or even if it's in a theater space, but what we're doing is fusing curriculum and the arts as a way of providing a creative and productive way of learning for high school students so far. And we plan to go to secondary, primary level as well. That's one of the questions. And also what I'm asking now is, so right now we're doing English literature, but how am I moving to other subjects as well and fusing drama and the arts with it? And next question is, I always ask as an entrepreneur, how am I different in the space? Because I do believe that using drama to teach when it comes down to high school is still in Jamaica an untapped market. So we can build and grow there, and of course, create jobs for other creatives as well. And the next question on my mind as an entrepreneur is sustainability. How am I maintaining sustainability in this company? And that's something I always question, and COVID-19 coming and making a huge shift brought that question back for me a lot this year. Redid business model canvas, read like a whole lot, just trying to answer those questions this year. So yeah.
When I remember I did a production of Joe Turner's Come and Gone, another August Wilson classic, and my pastor came to a pastor in my neighborhood, not necessarily my pastor. He came and he said, who your people? Where your people from? And I said, I'm Jamaican. He said, I knew you were Jamaican. Them Jamaicans, y'all are some industrial people. Y'all are I knew it had to take one of y'all to put this thing up here, because Jamaicans, we don't want to just eat for today. We want to know how we going to eat months after today. How is this seed I'm planting going to feed me, my family, everybody in the community for a while? I love the fact that sustainability is one of the questions that you're asking in the space. And speaking of which, I want to toss this back to you again, Evane, which is what are some of the strategies? What is the business model that you are employing towards growth and sustainability as a theater practitioner and an educator? How do you use theater in both spaces, education, in all the spaces, business, the arts, and education? Tell us a little bit about some of your models.
All right, so attribute right now, and I say right now because the truth is with COVID-19, I think business models are flipping right now. Our structures may just change. So our current structure, we're a social enterprise. Our mission is education. And we look at direct to customer sales when it comes down to going out and selling or marketing our product. We go directly to them. But now I call it the in-between. Will we still be that? Or are we now an e-commerce business? Is that now our business model? Are we moving online and are we adding subscription? Now, can our clients, so let's say we have 4 plays for the year and they can subscribe and have all and see all 4 plays at different times and they pay for a year. So those are the questions we're now asking because it's a birth, like persons are saying, of a new era. And as a young person, as a young leader in the space, I have to think of all of that to move forward. But otherwise from that, I feel like I forgot a part of your question. So that's in regards to the business model.
Strategy.
So strategy for me is good customer service. It sounds cliche, but I swear to God, it works. That's one of my biggest strategy. I was saying to somebody, my clients have my number. I'm so flexible with my clients. I'm up after 6 on the phone with them if need be, because I know 7:30 school starts. I am on the phone 9 p.m. if need be, because I know they did like after lessons, plus traveling, plus family time, and just getting to me. And my entire team is just so customer service. We are phenomenal when it comes on to that. And of course, excellent product, because you could be having great customer service and persons come and the product is, like we say in Jamaica, watered down. Like, no. So that is one of the things. And I'm also education. I look at how am I educating myself to run a business. I didn't go to Edna Manley and do arts management or business or anything like that. I did drama. I come out with an acting degree. So I look at different ways of finding, for example, the US Embassy had a program that had a few weeks of training. I became a part of that. Richard Branson is out here. They do training, getting you start up. To start Attribute, I was a part of Richard Branson. I can't remember the full name of the company.
Is that the Virgin Mogul?
Yeah. So he has...
Okay.
He has a social company out here, a social enterprise. I don't know if Rayon are favorite Branson Center. Thank you, Rayon. And 2017, I became a part of their program to launch in 2018. This year, when I'm thinking about a pivot, I joined the US Embassy program to learn and just to learn something new. And that's how I learned pitching. I learned my business model canvas. I can write one good now. I can show an investor if need be. But in order to grow, my strategy is education and, of course, networking. Definitely important.
You know, it's interesting because if you were to talk to theater producers and creatives in the US, you wouldn't really find a lot of creatives who are talking about the business side of things. There are many of us who are, so I'm not negating that. But what I'm noticing in speaking to the Jamaican space is that the artist and the entrepreneur are not separate beings. And I also noticed for Rayon and Fabian, you all, speaking of e-commerce and just working in different spaces, Fabian, you had to close your theater because of COVID. And now you've moved a lot of your programming online. But before that, you had a strategy of stage to screen, where like Delia Harris, you were premiering your plays, and then they were. How were you able to work out such a deal with Television Jamaica?
Well, I want to give credit to that course that I did at UA, my field, which was entertainment and cultural enterprise management. It really teaches you how to move from being a creative to being a business person. And from then on, I just had to know that I had to detach my passion for business to know, say, even from when the theater was open, it was a case where you had to ensure you project, you do your projections, you know how much you're projecting to make in the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. So from then on, I was doing proposals. I was trying to really garner support from corporate Jamaica. So from then, I really knew that it took more than just writing a play and leaving it and hoping that everything comes to, everybody comes and buy. It meant marketing. It meant finding a way how to reach out to TVJ to say, this is what I can give you. This is what I want from you, and how to negotiate that. I mean, I've done meetings upon meetings upon meetings with several corporate people, TVJ included, and it's just for me to know what's best for the brand and brand identity for Barks Entertainment. To be honest, my very first and second interaction with TVJ negotiations were never anything profitable for me, but it was more a long-term goal, a marketing strategy to say, okay, so now is when I'm gonna increase visibility, increase promotions of the brand, and then I create demand for the product. So I know that people will know Barks Entertainment, they will know our actors and know what we're capable of. Post-COVID-19, it had allowed me to identify a number of gaps in Barks Entertainment, and that was where I wasn't really putting a lot of online content. It has now become a case where we have a concentrated effort in creating content, and we've realized that the demand for content is so wide. It doesn't have to be this high quality thing that in my head, because I'm a perfectionist, on stage everything has to be perfect before I can put it out. But now I realize even some of the skits that I see online are getting millions of views. People are just demanding content. It's just how you market what you're doing, and it's the fact that you're doing it. Get to doing it. My weakness was that I didn't have a videographer on my team. I didn't have any money to always be videoing things. But no, I just literally invested in a phone. What's this? 11 Pro Max. I invested in a phone. I'm using the phone to shoot videos, short videos. I'm getting actors to just come in a room. Look here, improv. We need to make money. And that's it. And I can say I got my first check from YouTube, I think about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, and I didn't even start uploading anything new. I just reached the amount of views. I just kept pushing it out on WhatsApp. The same way I used to sell 1-1 tickets is the same way I try to go about doing 1-1 view. So, I mean, it's a view per dollar. That's how I'm starting to view it. So now we're going to have, come January, just a full day of just coming together. If it means that we just make up scripts on the spot and we shoot and we just have a vibe and just put up content. We invite a lot of videographers. Those are high schoolers who normally are our audience. A lot of them reach out to us. We have them, some of them writing now. I mean, of course, we're giving them stipend. We have some of them writing. We want people now to come on board as videographers or editors, because that's really the challenge still. But we are just going to be putting out, because we believe that right now is the time to really work on those gaps, and online content was the major gap. Even right now, we produce something called We Gone Viral, and that's about the corona and the HIV epidemic. Yeah. So that's one of our newest series that we're going to start, and everything can be a series. I've realized that everything you can just add and add and add. Nobody will care. People just want things to watch when they're on the toilets. They want things to watch. They just want things to watch, right? So that's what we're doing.
That's very true. What I'm hearing here is that you know your audience and you know what your audience needs, right? And we will return to live theater. But I do think that what you are achieving, what you each are achieving, is some serious audience development. Because when we can gather legally together again, when the curfews have lifted and whatever happens with the vaccine, people are going to want to be in space together. And what happens is you now have a culture that's formed around your work. Rayon, speaking of culture forming around your work, with Quilt. Now, I've been watching Quilt for about 5 years. You never know me. I watch you know. I've been watching what's happening at Quilt, and I've been watching where people go when they leave Quilt. Tell us about the culture of Quilt, this company that you formed when you were an undergrad at University of the West Indies, and you formed it to fill a gap, as Fabian just pointed out. And now this gap is the space, and it's a launch pad. Tell us a little bit about your business strategies at Quilt.
All right. So Quilt's, I guess, main strategy is always to be reflexive and not reactive. So we were disrupting ourselves and the market before we were disrupted by, let's say, something like COVID-19. So we have always been doing that kind of hybrid work where, and let me be clear, Quilt is not a one-man show. Like, there are several other people in Quilt who could be on this call who could probably be doing better talking about the company than I'm doing. The first thing we had to do, I just had to identify that, listen, I am not, I cannot do everything. So as the company moved from 7 to 40, it was important to get a director of finance and booking who does bookings and manages the finances, because I would say yes to every performance and do it for little or nothing, as we say in Jamaica, because the artist just wants to be out there sometimes. Maya Wilkinson, who is a director and a playwright in her own right, is a director of multimedia and Quilt, which means, in terms of film, anything having to do with designs and just general stuff. So it's having the right people in the right seat. That has always been the approach of Quilt. In terms of developing a culture, as you know, culture is something that shifts. And that's what I mean by being reflexive. You have to do that self-audit of the company ever so often, and then decide if you need to shift strategy. So let's say when the company just started, I guess Fabian, you know about that. Like, we're all in university and we're all studying medicine, law. I was doing languages. So just by what we were studying, the intention clearly was to, I guess what, be an artist on the side, and I guess have, what your parents would say, a real job.
Don't quit that day job, right?
Well, that's no longer our reality, because Quilt is now, I'd call like just a merger of millennials, myself and the original members, and a new group of performers who now are not saying they don't want to do the performer after work thing. When we do our camps, we do, and that's a part of our recruitment strategy, which is also very important if we're going to talk strategy. You have to be very deliberate about the recruitment. So Quilt has a profile, and it's really a quilt. So you have to think about every single patch. So if I lose, let's say when Fabian was in Quilt, and Fabian is a 6-footer male who is very strong in drama and comedy. Once that patch goes, we understand that a part of our recruitment strategy is to find that person, again, because we have a good understanding of what keeps the wheel turning in the company. Yes, and sometimes we do get surprises, but we have a very strong recruitment strategy. There's this thing that people call the quilt effect. Like, sometimes, members go out, that person kind of have the quilt thing. In terms of profit for my company looks very different, because I'm a social entrepreneur, as you put it. Possibly like for Fabian, if Fabian has a show, he'll hire, let's say, 7-10 actors, with I guess each actor getting payment for each performance. For my company, it looks different. When you have a company of 40, and if we're having a big show, sometimes it's 50 people, if everybody's coming back, performing on stage. Our shows are always sold out, but sometimes it's not profitable to pay every single person who's in the cast. And that's something that we recognize from early on. So we had to decide to make a different kind of investment and use our profits in a very different way. So if we make $10, instead of giving everyone 1 cent of the $10, probably we could give 3 persons $3 each as a scholarship to go to university. So the benefits, the member benefits for my company certainly looks different as well, because everyone has an understanding that we are doing this for the greater good of community. When we travel, traveling is very big for me, because traveling is what expanded, I guess, my theaterscape and my mind in terms of just overall perspective. So from the get-go, it has been very important that Quilt is a traveling company. And we've been to several spaces, in the world. And let me put it out there straight. I don't know. I don't even care if I get in trouble. But support doesn't always look very strong from, I guess, from a government or a corporate standpoint. It doesn't always look strong. I mean, over the years, because, I work in advertising and I'm a marketer, I've been able to position the company in a way that's attractive to corporate. But we have had to work over time, when we're traveling, to get every single member or most of the company to be a part of that trip, because that does something for the overall morale. When I was in high school at Glenmuir, and I was a part of the choir, we were traveling to Germany, Austria, the UK, and I saw what that did for me and my peers. So I've committed to that kind of Quilt being that kind of space for young people. So yeah, profit. It looks different because it's not always great on an individual actor basis. And
Go ahead.
And Quilt is also a springboard for you can't cage an artist. Art is rich when shared, and it's impoverished by ownership.
Scarcity. Mm-hmm.
I understand that I don't own my performance. At first, when I was like in my 20s, I was a little bit more insecure. Let me give you a joke. So for instance, like I'd have members in my company who, let's say they're in the drama school, and when they do their final production or any kind of work, and I go to watch it, I used to be like, that feels like me. That's just very, Quilt-like. And there was this need to like own. And as I've grown, as an artist and become more secure in my craft, I understand that if Fabian was in Quilt in the earlier years and now runs his own company, that's profit. That's also what profit looks like. Maya Wilkinson, my dear friend, is still the director of Multimedia and Quilt, but she writes her shows. She produces her own shows. Desmond Dennis, who is also a principal member of Quilt, writes his shows, produces shows. And then they go out and they come back. And even if they don't come back, it's a very empowering thing to have these vines and branches of artists coming from your space. So that's also a part of what our business model looks like. It's creating a space for growth where artists are empowered enough to be a part of a quilt, but also be their own blanket in a sense.
You call to mind so many practices. A couple of them, the Nettleford effect. You think about what Professor Nettleford was doing with the National Dance Company, where they were not paid a weekly salary like dance companies, but everything else was taken care of. They were able to travel. They were able to work in the highest form of, as far as learning from the best choreographers and dancers and thinkers in the space. You also remind me of Adrienne Marie Brown, who is a writer, social commentator. She has a book called Emergent Strategies. And what each of you are speaking about, this idea of, I'm going to create pathways that can build pathways, not just these linear movements or linear projectiles towards my own benefit or towards and reviewing what currency is, right? So currency can show up as dollars and cents, right? Physical paper dollars and cents. But currency can show up as access, association, education. Currency can show up in so many ways. Travel is currency. The ability to travel, to leave your hometown and see the world, going wherever, sometimes even leaving your zip code for those of us who live in the US, that can add currency to our lives. I'm happy that you all are looking at the work in this way, and because it does come back. It's this sense of launch. If we invest in this person, they will come back. It does come back to you. I want to quickly just look at some of the work that you're creating. Evane, you go into the schools, you go into the city, and you eat. What I love about the work that you're all creating is that you're all working inside of pop culture. You're not moving away from dance hall. You're dealing with dance hall in different ways, in different segments of dance hall, whether it's the lyricism or the movement or the polemics inside of dance hall. You're all looking at dance hall. And also, I really like the way that you're centering children. You're centering youth, children and teens in your work so that their stories show up. I see that in some of your work, Evane, and in some of your work, Fabian. And then you see that progression in your work as well, Rayon, as far as how we come of age to kind of know our identity. We're gonna start by looking at some of Evane's work. Evane, would you mind just setting up this clip that we're gonna see, which is, it was a summer camp that you were working with, and you're teaching a dance, a very famous dance. And I know I'm gonna try to control my shoulders, but set us up.
All right, so that was a summer camp we did in partnership with the Rosetown Foundation. So we did that, and we got funding from Jamaica Social Investment Fund to do a 4-week summer camp. It looked at using the performing arts for behavioral change. And what you're gonna see now, it was a field trip day. So we brought them to do something with music, and we wanted them to see dance as a career, and also to have a moment of complete release, where they get to be teens, get to be children, and just enjoy themselves. And it was so good because some of them said, boy, miss, I thought I would have hated today, but today really nice. I said, yes! So you can see that, so that is at Dance JA, which also teaches dance, and they tour teaching dance. Is a phenomenal company. But yeah, let's check it out.
Ooh, awesome. So let's roll the clip, and then you can tell us who the choreographer is in the clip later.
Yes.
All right.
The first variation, I think everybody know, is when we go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. applause for that. Come on.
Shoulder for your fling. Let me see if I can. You know what? Leave that alone. Left that alone. I'm not gonna do it.
Leave it to
That
the
is
younger
awesome.
one.
That release, especially, from the heart, from the body. How does that make the children feel?
Phenomenal. They felt it was smiles all day. They look like kids because sometimes, especially when children in low economic, socio-economic backgrounds or situations, life can sometimes be very, very heavy. And like Fabian spoke about earlier, that they go through a lot. So having this workshop and having this session with this dancer, and of course the popular dancer, part of Ding Dong crew, so of course that made it even more exciting for them. It's like celebrity moment, and they're being taught by a celebrity. Oh God. So it was such a release for them that day. And like I said, just get to be teens and just forget a lot of what they're going through in that moment as well.
Nice. Ding Dong, Evan A references Ding Dong, and Ding Dong is the big dancer in Jamaica. He's creating all the moves. He's the guy you want to know. If you want to Google him, YouTube him, you want to get in shape, just Google Ding Dong. You're going to get all the moves. Speaking of dancehall, we didn't look at some work from Fabian. We're looking at, tell us a little bit about this clip that we have from, why is the name of your play escaping me? Say it.
It's Black Sheep.
Black Sheep. So here is another example of now you are incorporating dancehall, lyricism, creativity. And what I like about Black Sheep is how the narratives of the streets is showing up on the stage. I'm gonna let you set up the clip. Go ahead, tell us a little bit about what we're about to see.
All right, Black Sheep in 2017, it was actually inspired by a true story. Many of you may know Magnum Kings and Queens of the Dancehall. It's a program that they do here in Jamaica. That is like an American Idol type of thing, but for dancehall. So there's always these poor, struggling ghetto youth who have this big dreams of becoming a superstar, and the stage Magnum Kings and Queens is where they go to try out. It's the end all. So Poran Bose was one of the winners, and I used his story to be reflected in Shane, who is the protagonist in Black Sheep, where he has this dream of becoming a big superstar, and his mom didn't believe in him. And in fact, his mom wanted to put him out, choose man over him, and that's the ghetto reality that we hear a lot, especially the boys' story who want to do music. And so Black Sheep was a perfect way to set the stage of people, a story that we hear so often, but we probably have not seen it. So yeah, that's a part of what I want to do, put stories out there that we hear, but we don't necessarily see it playing out before us. So you can check out the clip. Dancehall was a song, it's an original song, not an original rhythm. I'm just putting it out there, where the guy, he's very talented, good singer, Kevin Broomfield, and he writes and he sings, and his mother is the only person who doesn't believe in him, and the song is called Addicted to Me.
All right, let's check it out.
Yo, dog, from this check call me now. Think she addicted, think she can't get it out. Cause he addicted to me addicted to share. Come wind up your body, kitty come wind up on me. Addicted to me addicted to share. Come wind up your body, yeah. I tell me say she wanna be, and she gonna be bush got splash. Addicted to me like a NC, you know see. She a wine pon the thing, she a climb pon it, take a little time pon the thing. Alright then, and like then, she tiptoe. She move fast, then she move slow. The first touch, the first wine, the first light.
Me just a vision me go wear on the red carpet. One big heavy veil like Lady Gaga. Nicki Minaj, you can't borrow me with later. Who you say Cardi B? Bloody shoes. Who calls my name? Who calls my name?
So babes, Which red carpet you talk about?
There must be one of them. Grammys,
Yeah.
Oscars,
Yeah.
MTV, and Bet.
You mean BET?
Then me don't know how to spell it. Bet. You want Beyonce go bad mind me. Cause big nose Jay-Z no cute, son.
I tell me say she wanna be, and she gonna be addicted to me like a NSA.
Me nah lie, Babes. You full of talent. And it's only a matter of time before you bust way like Beashi Kite.
Well, too bad me and nobody.
Sure. Me can't bother with you and your sadness, you know. Look over there. Good. I imagine it. You need to believe in yourself. So my birthday, can you think me not on big artist?
But babes, you know you can't sing.
So a computer deliver. If the angel can't make it, and so can kiss it, run the truck and bring them up to me. I mean, you kiss it. Make the man them dizzy. But she's in my nissy.
That is awesome. So what's going to happen in both of their careers moving from here, the two characters?
Well, they just have to wait and watch it and see. The good thing is that it's all on YouTube, all 5 episodes.
You
So
can-
yeah, give me those views.
Speaking of the Magnum show, my favorite dancehall singer right now is Chanel Muir.
Yes, oh my
Yes,
God.
I'm always listening to Chanel Muir, and she was one of the artists who, as we said, boss in Jamaica. Out
Make
of
sure,
the Magnum.
say it's not a Yama Bella though.
I am not.
Oh
no,
wow. Oh
No,
wow.
no, try not. So we're gonna move on. I'm not a Yamed, even though I love my yellow yam, you know, but I'm not a Yamed. Moving on to Rayon. We have a clip from it's actually a trailer for Reassured. And I keep, Rayon, my bad you for that show, because that show you bad. And I want to see Reassured on the stages of the regional theaters here. And I'm speaking it into existence.
We will make it happen.
We want to see Reassured on the stages of these US theaters. We need this story. Tell us a little bit about Reassured before we show this clip.
Yes, so as Akiba said, it's a teaser, shot kind of film style. Reassured is, some people say it's a musical, but I say it's a piece of drama that was devised over a period of 2 years, with a kind of call and response between me and the actors of the company. It explores Caribbean identity. It looks at the Caribbean as an in-between space, as a liminal space, as a space of limbo, a space of compromise, and then eventually as a space of survival. The aesthetic that we have employed, Yoruba cosmology, we look at John Kuno, everybody knows Jamaican John Kuno. And we have, it plays with the Christian religion a bit. So this is a teaser we did for Reassured with 4 of the youngest addition, 4 of our apprentices who have recently graduated from high school.
Awesome. Let's see that clip, Reassured. Rayon, I'm hearing some Baroque music, the influence of some Baroque music in the trailer there. Do you employ those musical styles in the play as well?
Yes, so yeah, we do. And just generally in my work, music is very important. We don't use music like in the soundtrack kind of way, but each character and just people in life. When I think about people in life, I think about them as walking instruments or just a track. We all walk with our own song. So music is very important for me in my work. In that particular show, Reassured, uh, the piece of music you're hearing is, I think they say it's like a 18th century piece of violin that I took from a movie I love. But I like how there's some things that we can't articulate with words that I think music is way better at saying. Some music tends to be more articulate within a more concise period. So I felt that kind of turmoil was represented well in it. But my music, I went to Glenmuir. Glenmuir had a big choir, classical choir. So that still travels with me. Just like Fabian, I love my dancehall. I love spice. Really love spice. So music is a big part of the work I do. And from what I've seen from both Fabian and Ebony, because I do go to watch their work, music is really a big part. Because we're Caribbean people, we're Jamaicans.
Of course. You know, what I appreciate about hearing the Baroque music along with seeing those Black bodies and then the image of the ship and just knowing a little bit of the narrative there is, I often say that Caribbean people, as you actually described us much better than I could, but this notion of this in between, but that it's all our stories. We own the colonialism as much as we own the liberation from colonialism. So yes,
we have to own it, because when you there's this thing I always talk about in my company. If you pour yellow and blue paint into something, you mix it, you get green. It's very difficult for green to get up one day and just identify with the yellow parts or the blue parts. Caribbean identity is not so. I mean, let me think before I speak. It's rooted in both things, and I don't think it's something that we can escape. Until this day, one of the characters in my show, the houseboat character from the John Connor, he walks with like a house or a boat on his head, and in my show, he walks with the Rose Hall Great House, like on his head, this big burden. And until this day in Jamaica, we still have great houses that are attractions, and people are still getting married at them and taking pictures. So that is just a physical representation of this wrinkle, this historical wrinkle that we're not going to get. We're not going to get rid of it. That's why I say it's a limbo. It's a resilience. Being Caribbean, being Jamaican, is an act of resilience. It's a decision to exist regardless of. So it's not like the burden of this house is still on our head. We just have to know if we walk with it, and I think we do well with that.
So much is in there. I want to start. There's so much in there. So much is in there. As you speak, some Bob Marley is coming through my head. When I look at the dance work of Dr. Rex Nettleford is in there. It reminds me last week of Simone Harris talking about putting folks on stilts, right?
Yes, I really love that.
Elevate, you know, there's so much, and that's that power. That's that power that gives us the gall to win these pitch conference, to enter into spaces that may not be ours, but to take those spaces, as Evane has been doing. I want to switch to some Q&A. We have a question from Chris Alid in the chat here. And Chris says that she really likes the work that you're doing, Fabian, especially the work around the Ananda alert. And really would, you know, she really likes what you're doing there. She's curious as to your thoughts on the impact, and actually all three of your thoughts, I think you're all three going to chime in here, on the impact of Jamaican classism and regarding its support and promotion of theater and the arts. And that, yes, I see Rayan drinking his water because he's going to talk about
Hi, Rayan.
Fabian.
I have to start before Rayan, because we know Rayan I got done this.
So the impact of classism on the Jamaican theater space, what needs to happen there?
Jamaican theater, it's one of the most classist. It's just, you have a certain set of people who just put you in a box and they will refuse to see your work. Well, I'm known or stereotyped as a ghetto culture type of theater. So I showcase a lot of lower class reality. What I write about is always, for the most part, ghetto people culture, right?
Is it roots?
It's not roots. It's everything in terms of acting and whatever. It's mainstream. You know, roots takes off on a different level. But I do the realities that I showcase, the stories that I tell. The plot is always having to do with ghetto culture. I can tell you, you have a certain set of people who won't come to my theater because of what I write. They always think that it's a bit vulgar, and nothing vulgar in there, but just because of what the situation is, it's vulgar. Two, when I opened the theater, people had an issue with where the theater was located. Note, it was like 2 minutes from Halfway Tree. It was not in Smackina, it was on Mullines Road, 2 minutes from Halfway Tree on the Olympia Crown Hotel property. You had a certain set of people, benefit takers, who would not come, who would not take a benefit because of the location, because it wasn't located in New Kingston or at Philip Sherlock up at UA. So that for me was already putting me one side.
Even you dropping words on quilt?
If I what?
Words on quilt.
Oh, no, not at all. But trust me, the type of people, I'm just over it right now, to the point where I just said I'm gonna do my thing, focus on the youth, because that's where it's at. But
you put your theater next to the people. You are smart. Your theater is very close to your audience.
It is, and the young people, they don't care. They just wanted to come somewhere. And you know, we've had persons who, because it was a nicely decorated space in terms of the ambience, everything was really nice. You had people who came and they would pass loud comments like, I didn't expect to see this here. Like they would come, you know, to say, oh, it really shocked me. I couldn't believe it's when I walk through the door, is this I come back upon. You know, they were so surprised as to what they found. And it's not even a raw ghetto area, but people just terrible.
It's more Midtown, because Halfway Tree is like a Midtown area, but it is not kind of turning point where you leave downtown, uptown, and you're going off into, say, some of the other parishes. You kind of, it takes you, Halfway Tree takes you in and out of town for the most part. Right?
And you could not tell anyone a certain caliber of people would not find their way down there. Certain people won't watch the plays because they're not used to certain people being in it. If they don't know certain big names, they're not coming. So I had issues with that persons. I've had people who rented the space and they came back another year and said, oh, certain benefit takers say if it's at that location, they won't be supporting. Wow. I've even had corporate people who they'd be like, okay, what kind of play is it? Because we normally support JMTC, you know, but what kind of play is it that should we sponsor? So they're not willing to sponsor anything having to do with ghetto people, anything to do with ghetto culture. They're willing to sponsor stuff that deal with Peter Pan and, you know, those childlike things. So that's where I'm at. And I've just come to the reality to accept that some people will just say no and they'll not support what I'm doing because of who I'm trying to reach. But guess what? These are the young people who need the intervention. And through theater, they're who I'm getting at, and I will never change course. As Portia did say, we're not changing no course. That's where I'm at.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in before if you're gonna go to Rayon?
Please.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
I'm
afraid,
not going
what's
last.
Rayon to Rayon?
I'm going to speak. I'm not going last.
For me, I'm gonna go a little bit different. I do understand what Fabian is saying, and Fabian is correct because I've heard things about that venue. Because I was looking at it at one time before Fabian went there. For me, it's also this classism in society at how we look at theater, of how we look at culture. So it's not a real job. A lot of persons think that. And when I started my company and looking at art tribute and looking at drama in regards to learning, one of the first principals I met with plainly told me what I'm doing is ridiculous. She don't even believe in it. But she just allowed this meeting because I was recommended by somebody very close to her and she wanted to do them a favor. Next. That was the first time I ever pitched my company to somebody and it was classism in my face. And she was very proper. And I was like, oh my God, is this what I'm going to go through? And that's also why I had low confidence in regards to even pitching. I didn't think rest of Jamaica would think that what I am doing is anything to look at. It's not anything of importance, of substance. It's because of classism. When I said I was going to go to Edna Manley, a family friend of mine was so surprised. They thought I was going to be a lawyer because I'm so bright. I don't know what that bright means, as if you can't do theater and be bright. So that is something that we're still working through as a country, and as entrepreneurs, we are really seeing it a lot. Just talking to corporate Jamaica, and when I now see persons in corporate raising their eyes, interested in me, I'm so shocked. I'm like, whoa, okay.
But it's because you all are breaking that glass ceiling. And they're going to become more interested in you because you are able to reach, you all are like water. You are able to reach the market, the parts of the market that they want, that they can't reach. You got to know water is something that breaks through rocks.
And what we have to do,
breaking through those rocks.
And what we have to do, and I'm thinking Fabian did this too, we have to do it first on our own. We have to see us doing it and seeing that, oh, okay, what they're doing makes sense. Okay, and then they come on.
I know you don't want to go last, Rayon, but if you want to speak into the question of classism, if not, we can start to go to our final question, into our dreamscape as we start.
I have to say something about it.
Yes, sir.
I think, all right, we have to remember, guys, that theater is a mirror. And if you think about the mirror in like the truest sense, like there are days when we wake up and you go to the mirror, bam, and you're like, Rayon, I don't like how my hair look today. Oh, but then there are people who would like a deeper complex who just don't like looking at themselves. So if Fabian, you go through the work and put up a play that's deeply embedded in what it means to be a Jamaican teenager, right? That's something that's not beautiful per se, like in the traditional sense. It's not a fairy tale. That experience is not a fairy tale. And there are a lot of people who are escapists and don't want to be reminded by that. So there's that. But then there's also privilege that you have that you don't know you have until you have it, until you see other people without it. So for instance, when I have a show, I almost know that it's gonna be full because based on the type of work we do, it attracts a lot of academics, and it's already in the university. So our peers come, we have a following. So there's that privilege of being on that campus for now until we get kicked out. And by the way, we have been kicked out before.
You won't get kicked out.
Yeah, there's that privilege, but I too come under criticism. Like there are people saying, "Me nah come on your show. Wanna go on like on too bright. Like it's too bright. It's like it's a bright people show. This show is for bright people." When it's not, And I think a deep part of of what we're experiencing is fair. And it's not just classism. There's also the ageism thing where how dare you, boy from the Clarendon bottom bush, come into Kingston, form this company, and travel the world and do all of these great things. So it's not just from like class, but also people like, how old are you? You reached 30 yet? Yeah, much like, you know, why are you doing this?
Who are you to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So yeah, we'll leap of swords. There are a lot of swords sticking us, and I know I'm speaking for the other two panelists. That there are a lot of swords, whether it's classism, ageism. There's Fabian, we call it locationism, because just like Akiba, let me tell you, just like how there are people who don't want to go to see Fabian's show in Halfway Tree. There are people who feel intimidated by a university space to come and watch the show. And a lot of the times, those are the people who I want to come and watch because the work is sometimes more accessible than they think. And I had to break that thing with Fabian's show. Before, I used to be like, I'm not so sure I can make it down to Fabian's show to watch it, and then they're gonna have all of the kids and they're all gonna be sweaty and whatever. You know, that just I was giving myself excuses to not see the show. And I spoke to Fabian. Fabian's like, no, you can come and see the show in the nights. I didn't even know that my peer had two types of shows. He has some in the days for students and then in the evening for adults. When I went and I started to watch more of Fabian's plays, I was just like, Fabian is not saying anything different from what I'm saying. It's almost like we're in the same band, but just with different instruments. And I have to, I was watching, when them call it the August Wilson, the one with Viola David.
Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the one on Netflix?
Yeah, man. And I was watching the band, and a part of this band working is if Ryan McLean is playing, let's say people want to say my work is more sophisticated. I'm playing the violin or the cello in the theater band, and Fabian is playing a deep bass, true deep bass drum down there. I have to know what the hell he's playing. You understand? I have to know what Evanie is playing if she's playing some other kind of string instrument. So I had to break out of that because I too had my own biases, you know, about theater and what theater looks like, you know. So
I love this comparison to the orchestra, because you see what you're talking to, or the symphony of it all, right?
Yeah.
What you're talking to is the Jamaican story. Yes, you have to know the notes that you play. Yes, you have to know the notes that you're playing, Fabian, and Evanie is playing, because you all are bearers. You are light bearers of the Jamaican narrative for your millennial generation, for the Gen Zs who are looking up to you, and for their children that are going to be calling you the Aston Cooks and the Dennis Scotts and the Eugene Williams. That's what you're going to be for them. So when you're able to listen to each other and appreciate each other and understand this symphony of the Jamaican story, it's beautiful. Go ahead, and then we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, like we have to work. People come with biases because we all are coming from different spaces. We have biases. And I watch it happen all the time. You see some guys come to my show to come and watch their girlfriends or somebody that's performing or whatever. And, you know, rough, tough man. No. You know, I'm not into theater. And they sit. And then it's always very interesting to see them after the show. They were like, boy, yo, this is nice, you know, man. And that's what we need. We need, you know, Fabian and Evan, probably what we need. You know, like, oh, if a product is new in the market, because I work in advertising, you know, through merchandising or some kind of thing, you have to sample it in the supermarket. You have to give people sampling in the supermarket so they can taste the product. A lot of the times, we try to bring people the product like, bam. And I think what COVID has taught us is that the internet is such a circular, it's access for all. Access is so free. We need to start, I guess we all have, put more work into putting out bite-sized pieces of our work that more palatable, I guess, to the everyday tongue. I want to say palatable. I don't mean we should water down our work, but just things people can take in small pieces and wheel them in, you know? Because
like
I'm
that.
not so concerned, and again, people kick me if I say this, but I don't care. I'm not so, when I travel the world with my work, people love my work. People, they get it. People, some of the biggest criticisms I get from my work locally is from like older theater makers, you know, who probably don't understand, you know, what you're playing with or what you're doing. I mean, sometimes they have valid points. So I've actually shifted my focus a bit. Yes, I involve older theater makers every time I'm creating a piece of work. I've used Jean Small, big actress. I've had Rodney Campbell recently. We're working on a project. We have had Rooney Chambers. We have had Neeli Banks. Whatever project I'm working on, a part of the strategy is always to have an outsider that's educating the cast. And interestingly, also learning about, you know, what we're doing. Working with Quilt is always seems to be a kind of refresh for them sometime. But my focus now is recruiting Gen Z and millennials. So in the next 5 years or 10 years, I have them for their theater life and their theater audience life, because they have a longer life, you know, hopefully to live. So that's where my focus is. I'm honoring the past, honoring the people who have come before me, and the equipment they have left for me to work. But my main focus now is recruiting people of my age and younger.
This is such a rarity that I'm noticing in the Jamaican space, because young people are always on their way climbing, and sometimes we're climbing, we're not climbing and pulling up. And one of the things that I'm hearing as I speak to you and to other millennials in the space is that you all are climbing and with two hands. You got a bale on your head, you got something on your back, and then you got your two hands holding on to the generation coming up. That is remarkable. That's something that, you know, somebody call Mr. Wholeness, because y'all need a fund to support what you all are doing.
Yes.
And Minister Craig, we need a fund.
Say it again.
We need a fund to support what y'all are doing. And speaking of which, I'm going to do a quick, as we close out, Fabian, I'm going to have you respond inside of this. I know you want to say something, so I do want you to say it. We're going to close out with one final question. We've been calling it a dreamscape. And this week I've decided that I'm doing the dreamscape a little differently. So I have a check. And it's a blank check. And it is in any currency that you want it to be in. The check cannot bounce. This is a reparations check. This is the money that's owed to you, owed to us. So it can't bounce. I have a blank check. What would you do with this? What would you do with it in the way of transforming the space, the theater space, narratives in Jamaica? And then what would be, 2 weeks ago we had Delia Harris on the show, and she pointed out the ROI, the return on the investment, is the reason why corporate and the reason why there's not a lot of funding, because they think theater won't give a good ROI. If I give you this blank check, how would you change the space with it? And what would be my ROI? And we're going to start with Fabian. And because we're at the end, we want to keep our responses relatively brief. Go ahead, Fabian.
Well, what I was saying earlier was that I for one can tell you that I've sent several letters when it comes to the government, the Ministry of Culture and Entertainment. I've sent letters upon letters every year. Every time I'm doing a play, I send out proposals, like call it white fishing. There's one year I remember I counted 200 emails I sent out, and I think I got only 5 responses, and that was from corporate Jamaica. So we're not short of reaching out. We're not short of them not knowing what we're doing. They know we're here. We've been knocking on doors, but nobody's answering, right? But in the event that I'm supposed to get an answer with a blank check, I would, I don't know what the monetary value is, but I would want to establish a theater or performing arts center in every single parish in Jamaica. I do believe youth need this. And I do believe that we need to also empower youth by giving them scholarships, even say 50 to 100 young people per year being awarded scholarships to go overseas, or strengthening EDNA program, or through post experience with theater. But they need to be paid for this. They need to feel as if they can earn from their passion. It's not no so much, oh, she can't act, she can't sing, she can't dance anymore. She can be a career-driven person who is passionate about the arts. She's focused on her art and she's being paid for it. So I want a check that will really encompass everything. I don't know if it will be $2 billion a year, but hopefully somebody, God fairy godmother, anybody who it is, maybe it's you, Akiba. I'm hoping that somehow this can
All right,
get.
let me call my banker. Rayan, what would you do with that check?
Why? All right. You say the check would be blank. The amount of zeros I'd write on that check. But I think I would invest in two things. A physical place, and education. So just like a fund where, if you want to go to study at Edna Manley, or you want to go to study at NYU, once young people need to know that it is possible. So education, and I guess like a physical space, because I think those two things are great investments that can lead to other things.
Nice. Evane, what would you do with your blank check? What's your dreamscape for the future?
Definitely for me, building or creating our methodology using the performing arts in regards to education, and looking at least 3 more subjects, using that money to bring it in workshops or in classroom or in plays to students, of course, and that would bring creation of jobs for creatives, and I'm very passionate about that. We need to be working and earning. I say it all the time. So definitely that would be it for me. And who knows, maybe a physical space. Can't say no to that. Every business need a home.
Yes. Carl O'Brien Williams, who was with us last week, he's one of our biggest fans. He hasn't missed a conversation, and he was a panelist last week. He says, I feel successful just listening to them. It's affirming. Looking forward to supporting your work. Stay bright when it's dark. There's no theater, so continue to shed your light. And I have to tell you the truth, I agree 100% with Carl. I feel successful just listening to you. You all are igniting something in me, and I'm 10 years down the road from you all. So I'm so grateful to be hanging out with you guys. This has been a masterclass. This has been a masterclass. I have to say, I hope everybody was listening, and I really hope that everybody heard what it really trues to, Buju Banton, as the song says, walk like a champion. And what it really is that what that song really is about is that no matter what is around you, you stand up and you walk with grace, and you walk with style, and you walk with power, and you take your space. Walk like a champion. And I feel like that's what you all do. You are walking like champions. So I thank you all so very, very much. We're going to close out. And speaking of walking, Jamaica, next week is week 10 of 10 weeks in Jamaica. And we heard this name come up a lot, Michael Holgate. Well, Michael Holgate is the director of the Philip Sherlock Center for the Performing Arts at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. And he's also one of the directors of Ashe Performing Arts Company, which is one of the leading performing arts companies in the Caribbean. Michael Holgate will be joining us next week for week 10, along with Tanya Batson Savage, a playwright and director, theater professional. And we're going to be talking about Afrofuturism and the Jamaican stage. That's next Sunday, January 3rd. It's the final week, and we're visioning and moving ourselves into the future. So speaking of walking, Jamaican people have a saying. We say, when we leave each other, we say, walk good. It means, I wish you blessings on your life. And we theater practitioners, especially actors, we say, see you on the boards, which means I'll see you at the next job. So listen, walk good on the boards. You hear? All right.